Hello everybody, hope you guys are doing well. So today we will start with the CSS chapter, and now we will be proceeding with certain elements in CSS. Now a basic visual formatting. Now, like you've experienced the frustration of having your intended layout not to render as expected after adding 27 style rules to get it perfect. You might not know which rule solve your problem. With the model as open and powerful as that contained within CSS, no book could help to cover every possible way of combining properties and effects. You will undoubtedly go on to discover new, uh, uh, new ways of using CSS with a thorough grasp of how visual rendering model works. However, you will be able to determine whether a behavior is correct consequence of the rendering engine CSS defines. So, what he's trying to say is, at times CSS might play around with you. So now basic boxes. Now at its core, CSS assumes that every element generates one or more rectangular boxes called as element boxes. Now the future versions of specifications may allow for non-rectangular shapes, and indeed changes have been proposed. But right now all elements are basically are generates one or more rectangular boxes. Now each element box has a content area at its center. This content area is surrounded by an optional amount of padding, border, outlines, and margins. This is the content area. This is the padding. This is the margin area. The dark. Sorry, this is the border area, and then this is the margin area. These areas are considered optional because they could all be set to a size of 0, effectively removing the elements from the element box. The figure shows a content area along with. So this is, so for example, every element is basically a rectangular box. The innermost is this is the content. Then besides the content we have the padding, then we have the borders, and then the margin. Now before looking at the properties that can alter the space taken up by the element, let's cover the vocabulary needed to fully understand how elements are laid out and take up space. A quick primer. First, we will quickly review the kinds of boxes we will be discussing. Block flow, known as block axis. This is the direction along which block level elements are stacked. In many languages, including all European derived languages, this direction is from top to bottom. In Chinese, this can be either from left to right or top to bottom. The actual block flow direction is set by writing more, which is discussed in this. Now, inline based direction was an inline axis. This is the direction along which lines or text are written. In Romanic languages, this is left to right. In languages such as Arabic, the line based direction is left right to left. Now, in CJK languages, for example, Chinese, Japan, Korean, it is top to bottom and left to right. Normal flow default by elements which are placed inside the browser's viewport based on the parent's writing. Most elements in the normal flow, and the only way for an element to leave the normal flow is to be floated position on very flexible grid or table. Now black box. Now this is generated by an element such as a paragraph or heading. Now these boxes generate blank spaces around both before and after their boxes. When it is normal flow, so the boxes in normal flow stack along the block flow axis once after the another, pretty much like earlier element can be made to generate a block box by declaring display block. Although these are other observations to generate block. Now inline box. Now inline box is basically these are laid out along with the inline and base direction and do not generate line breaks before or after themselves. An inline box is longer than the inline size of the element by default if it is not replaced. Now wrap to multiple lines and to generate inline can be done at display and non-replaced elements. Now these elements are those trees basically now defining the different types of block here. So what is a block flow direction? The block axis, the direction along the block. These are basically how block elements are going to be stacked. Okay. So Like what is block flow? In the context of CSS and design, block flow direction refers to the direction in which the content within the block level element is arranged or flow. So this is basically we are talking about uh, content inside the element. For example, languages such as Arabic, it is written in right to left. Arabic is and so on. Now inline based direction. Now inline basically is how the contents of inline elements are written. In terms of layout, inline based elements are those that are typically displayed within a line of text. So these are basically how inline elements behave. And normal flow is by which elements are placed inside the browser's viewport based on parent's writing mode. Most elements are in the normal flow. The only way for the element to leave the normal flow is so basically almost elements are generally in the normal flow. Black box. This is a box generated by an element such as a paragraph. These boxes generate blank spaces both before and after the boxes when in the normal flow so that the box in the normal flow stack along the block. Let's see what is black box. Mm. The black box is basically in CSS. Black box is basically referring to an element whose this is the box generated by an element. It is a paragraph heading. These boxes generate blank spaces both before and after their boxes. So this is basically still in the normal flow. These are block level elements. You can say block elements. And then is inline boxes. Basically, these are elements which are placed within the lines. Now, these elements that serves as a placeholder for something else. The classic example of an element is image which simply simply points to an image file that is inserted into a document clue at the point where image itself is not found for okay, so yeah, what is document normal? Now let us see what is in CSS default behavior that follows when rendering the HTML element. The HTML the elements are placed within the HTML document. They follow a pattern. Okay, so normal flow block level elements. Mm. Okay, so now first let us see what is the normal flow. So normal flow refers to the default layout behavior that the browsers follow when rendering HTML elements. When elements are placed within the HTML document, they follow. So like if I do not apply any styling, like even if there is no styling applied here, the elements will follow a certain way. The elements will be laid out in a certain way. So that is what is saying, that is referring to. This is style, right? So block level elements are basically those elements. Um, Block level elements. So these, like, even if there is no styling applied, but these elements are placed in a proper, like in some format, right? This is basically the normal flow, like stacking the elements on one upon each other. That, right? So then, so here there will be two type of elements. One is block level, and then there will be inline elements. So the inline elements, they will not start on a new line. For example, like if I have something, so see, these elements are stacked on one, because this is a block level element. Even this is a block level element, so it's getting stacked on one on each other. So if I have any inline element, then it will be, for example, here if I write an image or something like that, maybe alternate is required. Yeah, this is an, although it's coming on the next line, but it appears that it's coming on the next line. Or if I open, that is a image is this taking the entire width? I don't know. Body. Oh, so what I need. Oh, so what has happened is that element is placed after the tag, right? So what if I place it within the tag? So now this is going to be inline. See, this is inline. This is only occupying how much this taking. Although there is, it's present within this block. Now we need to containing block. We need to determine one or more kind of blocks in detail, and in this case is enough to the detail that merits in its own section. Every element's box is laid out with respect to its containing block. In a very real way, the containing block is the layout context for a box. Okay. The in real containing block is the layout. CSS defines a series of rules for determining a box containing block for a given element. The containing block forms from the contingents of the nearest ancestor element that generates a list item or a block box, which includes table boxes, etc. Consider the following. This is now in this simple markup, the containing block P. What is trying to say? And about the body element is dependent on the layout of the HTML element, whose box creates what is called as the initial containing block. It's a unique in the viewport of the browser window. So basically, this is like this is he's saying that this is contained inside some block. No, borders are the most often generated in now altering element display. Now you can affect the way the user element displays by setting a value for display property. Okay, now so values display can be uh, outside, inside, internal. Okay, so certain elements. So what he's saying is inline elements can be converted into block elements. That's all. There is nothing much here to read. Okay, now handling block boxes. Now block boxes behave in a predictable yet some surprising ways. The handling of the box placement is and different. To fully understand how block boxes are rendered, you must pay attention several aspects of these boxes. Now these are shown in the figure which illustrates placement in different modes. Okay. There is I'm not they can affect the way. But what is the use of this containing block? What does this containing block do? A containing block is a reference block used by certain CSS properties to determine the position on the layout. The containing block is the box that an element's properties such as are colloquially related to the content is particularly important when using positioning as well as CSS transition plugin. How is the containing block defined? A definition of containing block depends upon the element's positioning. The containing block for an absolute position element is determined by its nearest position ancestor. So basically, containing block is what is trying to say is a containing block is a reference block that is used to determine the position and layout, how that element will be layout. The containing block defines the boundaries of the context in which an element's position or size is calculated. If there is no styling message, then how will it get styled? Now links, okay, so these are all inline elements, right? So then this will be on in the same line. So changing their display property will change then how they are appearing. Yeah. So now there are two types of access is saying. The block access is this, like the block elements will be always on top of each other and the inline access is left to right. But what's the advantage of doing that? Now this is something very important. Box sizing. Okay, now there is a drawback when if it's block space. Like what's the issue with uh, block size and inline size? These properties allow you to set the size of an element along its block axis or to contain the length lines of a text along the inline axis regardless of the direction. Or if you write block size 500, the element's block size will be 500 pixels wide. Even if that leads to content spilling out of the element box, we will discuss that in more details in the later chapter. Consider the block size. Block size is the total size of the block. That's what it's trying to say. What is the use of block access? Why do we study that? The concept of block access is crucial in CSS because it helps in understanding how content is laid out in relation to different lighting modes and the overall layout model of a page. The block access defines the primary direction which elements are selected as stacked or arranged in a document, which is an important. What is the block axis? The block axis is the primary axis along which content flows in a okay. In a the block axis is the primary axis along which the content flows in a block level context. It refers to the vertical axis in left to right direction and in vertical writing modes. What is writing modes? Writing mode CSS in CSS refers to the way the content is laid out and how text flows in a document. This property plays a significant role. The default writing mode is left to right, but CSS also supports modes that allow text to flow in top to bottom and right to left. Okay, first so like okay, let's so writing mode is basically how content will be laid out, like in certain languages like Arabic it is right to left. Yes, so we will writing mode is a property defines how the content will be loaded on a page, especially controlling the direction of text flows and how block elements are arranged. It allows developers to specify different text flow directions within the language or writing system, making it crucial for multi-language website internationalization. For example, in languages like Arabic, Hebrew, and Persian, the text flows from right to left rather than from left to right, which is in English. And in addition to additional text flow, also occurs vertical text flow, which is commonly used in Japanese and Chinese. So in Japanese and Chinese written from like up to down, not this way. Okay, so CKJ languages are written top to bottom. Yeah, Chinese, these are traditional languages. Let's use this result. I prefer this response. Okay, so what's the default? Default will be always block will be left to right, right? Okay, okay. So the browser does not know which access are we using. Like, so the browser only knows the default behavior, I guess. That is from top to the default behavior is from top to bottom. Yeah, so browsers have a default text layout. Generally it will be okay. So whenever we write anything, for example, in a paragraph, this is laid from left to right. That is the default flow. Now, okay. Well, then what is saying here? Let's see. Now block size and inline. Now because CSS recognize blocks, there are two axes, right? One is the block axis. So this is how. Okay, so the block axis can be anyhow. Like it can be top to bottom, left to right to left. We can make it anyhow. So block axis defines how block elements are laid out, right? What is the so text laid horizontally from left to right for languages like English, French. Block level elements, these are stacked vertically on top to bottom. This is the standard behavior and it's used layout by most web content, especially for vertical writing modes or when dealing with right to left. Explicit instructions like to be mentioned, for example, direction or writing mode. So in general, what he's saying is, so the block axis, text within the block will from left to right, and the block level elements they are stacked on one on each other from top to bottom. Okay. Now these properties allow you to set the size of an inline axis. What is inline axis? Just like how we have how a block element will be declared. Inline elements are also generally the same, right? They are also left to right. Default behavior is of block elements is top to bottom, and the content will be placed left to right. The inline elements by default it will be the same, right? Like it won't change. I believe so. No, I haven't changed anything yet. From left to right. Mm, the block elements are stacked on top of each other. Right now we haven't done about positioning, so Okay, so by default, behavior of block and inline elements is, let me clarify. So behavior block elements, these are default stacked vertically along the block axis, top to bottom. Content inside the element is placed from left to right in the inline axis, unless modified by properties like text, like direction, or so. What is the inline axis only for inline elements? The inline axis is not exclusively for inline elements, but it is commonly associated with inline elements. Okay, inline axis is so inline axis versus block. The block axis is in which block level elements are stacked. Oh, I see. So now here he is defining two things. Okay, let's come back. Wait. Let's go back. Okay. Now see, block flow basically means how block elements. No, this is not content inside. This I'm referring is nothing about. Now when I say inline based direction, this refers to the content. So you could have different possibilities, right? The block elements are getting stacked top to bottom, but the content inside is the block elements are getting stacked from top to bottom, but the inline contents maybe from left to right. Something like that he's trying to say. That's why when we see here there are like three diagrams, right? So he's saying, okay, so the block elements are stacked from where, but the content inside is in this direction. Like there could be 2 power 2, right? Four possibilities. One is the default one where they are stacked and the content goes from left to right. This is the default one. The second is elements are stacked top to bottom, but the inline axis is from right to left. The third is when instead of stacking the elements from top to bottom, they are stacked from right to left. That is, the topmost element will come in the right and then to the left. However, this is up. So, and one more possibility we could, so left to right is left to right, and this direction could change. Like this will become from bottom to up. So, okay. So now let's make some notes. Can I not scroll up down? The browser does not know how to render the content, right? Mm. Yeah, the first thing that we can say here is so browser does not know uh, how contents. So let's first see type of elements. Then that first I have is a block level element, and then second I have a There are many more elements as well. Now, how are these placed? How is the content and the elements placed in each? The first placing is block. So in block level elements, you have two axes. So one is the block axis, another is the inline axis, which describes the content inside. It describes the content inside the block. Okay. Is this for all? Do all elements have, or it's only for? These are generally not stacked on top of each other, right? Okay, so block axis and inline axis for all elements. Does he mean to say that? Okay, okay. So no. What is now here? Okay. Now is contained there. So we have two axes. Just this can be removed from there. Basically, so one is the block axis. Second is inline axis. Which describes how content inside the block are put. The block elements default behavior is so now in block elements. How does the block axis behave? In default, it is top to bottom, and then how does the inline axis behave? Default it is left to right, and then we come to inline. Inline, so here what how does the block axis will be? No, by default behavior I'm checking. Horizontal is top to bottom. So when we say inline element, these elements are basically going to be placed inside the okay. Now I get what it is saying. These are going to be inside the these are going to be placed inside the block, right? Inside the inline axis. So they inherit block properties, I guess. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Okay, but the thing is, since inline elements are inside the block axis, on the block layer, something like that. They are generally inline elements are generally contained within the block elements, right? Then they are called inline. They will flow horizontally along the inline axis, left to right. Horizontal is horizontal top to bottom, or vertical means sideways. Let me check. What does vertical mean here? To the up and down direction along the y-axis. So horizontal is referred to as side to side or x-axis direction. Okay. Logical elements, because CSS recognizes block and inline axis for elements. So what he's saying is CSS will use block and inline axis to place the elements. It provides properties that relate to certain explicit elements as along each axis. CSS will use okay, now block size. Now these properties allow you to set the size or block size of an element along its block axis, or to constrain the length of lines of text along the line axis. Regardless of the direction, if you write 500 block size 500, the element's block size will be 500 wide. Even if that leads to content spilling out of the element box. We will discuss that in more in the later chapter. Okay. Now then inline size. So inline size, consider the following which of the results are shown when applied in writing modes. The elements are sized consistently along the linear axis regardless of the writing direction. If you tilt your right to the side, you can see that the inlines wrap in the exactly same places. This yields a consistent line length across all writing modes. Similarly, if you can set as block size for elements, now this is used more for replace elements like images, but it can be also used in any circumstances that make sense. Having done that, image element found inside a P will have a block size set to 1.5 times. Oh, this is basically EM, right? This is like a related unit. It's always related to the parent. So this works on images because they are inline replaced elements. It wouldn't work on inline non-replaced elements. You could also use block size to constrain the block length of grid layout elements to minimum or maximum, such as minimum main grid. Okay, it should be said that usually block size is determined automatically because elements in a normal flow often don't have an explicitly set block size. For example, if an element's block flow is top to bottom and it's 8 line long and each line is 1/8 of an inch tall, and its block size will be 1 inch. If it's This is usually what you want particular. When block size is explicit, then there isn't enough content to build a blocks. Empty spaces will appear inside the box. Okay, if there is more content that can be filled, the content may overflow the box or scroll bars may appear. Now content based sizing values. Now beyond the length and percentages you can saw previously. A few keywords provide content build max content. Now take up the most spaces available possible to fit. Now there are certain properties that fit minimum okay, now block size. Now we are using certain CSS properties. Important CSS important CSS properties. First is the block size determines the block access. This is working on the block access. Yeah, setting size on along the block axis. That means is it top to bottom thing? Some block size. In default will work top to bottom. No, it is. Yeah, in the default writing mode, block size property will top to bottom along the block axis. Let's break it down. So when the block size set writing modes, it controls the height here. This, since it's working from top to bottom, right, it kind of looks like it's controlling the height. Again, default behavior will be from top to bottom. Okay. And then I have inline. Then I have inline size. This is the content, sorry, the text size. This is along this is along the inline axis. Now content based sizing, beyond the length and percentages you saw previously for sorting block and inline sizes, a few keywords provide content based max content. Okay, now there are other properties, certain properties beyond the length and percentages saw previously for setting and blocking. Okay, now there is some more type is saying the content based sizing. Now when I say content based, is it right now? I'm not determining how much content is occupying. When I say block size or inline size, there's nothing in relation to content. It's just saying, so by default it is horizontal. No? By default this is left to right. In one cliche you can write is, if content size is more, then there will be overflow. Right now nothing mentioned about the content, right? We are not worrying how much is the content. Then we have empty spaces. The max content, now max. Now then, now here I'm coming to content-based sizing. Content-based sizing, first I have max content. And this is related to content, like not the inline or inline axis or block axis. Now take up more spaces available to fit in the content, even suppress and line wrapping in case of text content. The content will take all the space. That's what I'm saying. Main content will and then there is fit content. Here the content will take up the space will be determined by calculating values of max content, main content, and regular content sizing, taking the maximum of main content and regular sizing them. Okay, that sounds a bit complex. This is something calculated. This is like I can say this will involve some complex work calculation, I can say. Okay. Now the paragraph is said is on the left is set to max content, and this what happens is the paragraph is made as wide as needed, so it will fit the entire space. It will take most of the space. Now at the end of the main content, minimum space required for the content. The fit content is something that is interesting. Now this is something complex, so this is intuitive, right? If the size of content is less, take maximum space. Then if size of content is more, take minimum space. This is kind of an intuitive approach. Fit content. Minimum and maximum logical sizing. If you like to set minimum and maximum bounds on, there's something called as minimum maximum. Some CSS properties help you out. So like this is more when we do what do you say, when when we want to have it on different screens, right? Responsiveness, when we want to achieve that responsiveness behavior, then this kind of makes sense. Now, height and width. Now, if you have used CSS for a while or maintaining legacy code, you are probably used to thinking of top margin and bottom margin. This is because originally all box models were expressed or described in terms of their physical direction. Top right can still work with the physical CSS, simply adding new direction to the mix. If you were to change the inline size width in the previous code, you would get a result type. Okay, so now there is something called as new property which has come, which is height and width. Now height and width is a known physical property. They refer to the physical direction as opposed to writing dependent direction on block size and inline size. Thus height really does refer to the distance from the top to the bottom of the element's inner edge regardless of the direction of the block axis. And right, okay. Now there is a fuse block and inline property like block size instead of physical height, and your design is applied it will to content translated to the language. They will automatically, if you use block and inline properties like block size instead of physical directions like height, the design is applied to content translated to the language. The layout will automatically adjust to your intentions. So what he is saying here is, if you use block and inline properties like block size instead of physical directions like height, then the design is applied to the content translated to the. Okay. So is block size, do we use block size in modern CSS or we prefer to use, right? Both are same meaning, yeah. Okay, yeah, so I mean block size will also affect, but then when we change the block size, the height property might not work then. So what he's saying is height is useful only in the default mode. Yeah, height is only useful when you're working on default block access. Yeah, it's vertical access. Now see, so height. Then let's do something. The height is um, so height is basically like, yeah, and is useful when in default block access. And not in default access, don't use. use block size, then that will mean something. Then I see saying that, so what are possible values it can take? So initial value is set to auto, applies to all elements except non-replaced inline elements, table rows and row groups, calculated with respect percentages, vertical height, horizontal width of the containing block. When we write height and width in percentages, then how it's work. It's easy to know. Animatable, yes. Okay. Now these are physical properties. They refer to the physical direction. The same within the one declared later will take precedence. The same is true if block size and height are declared. If the original layer and specificity of the set, so then setting the blocks height or width as a length means it will be length, tall or wide regardless of the content within it. If you set an element that generates block width to 200 pixels, it will be 200 pixels wide. Okay, this note, the handling of auto top and bottom margins is different for, okay, this we have not yet come to top auto, right? So like here is an example. So when I say width auto, what does it do? Let's study auto. We haven't talked about auto units, right? What is the auto unit? Means if the auto value is not, it's in what does it do? Auto means automatically height is calculated based on the automatic calculation. So your width is calculated automatically. If you do, there is no need for us to specify. Okay. And then we auto is a it's a property value, right? That thing declaration of CSS is. Oh, it's spelling mistake. And when you come to auto is basically automatic uh, calculated by browser. Now box sizing. Now this is now how to change the box size. Now it seems a little weird to use height and width and box size and inline size to describe the sizing and elements content area instead of its visible area. You can make that box sizing more intuitive by using box sizing, content box, and border. So what are the properties? Now this is box sizing. Now what's the use of box sizing? Why to do that? It's single literal way to use and block size and inline size to describe. Remember when we do inline size we are describing also is saying there is some difference. When I say block size and inline size, now it seems a little weird to use height and width and block size and inline size to describe the size. If it seems a little weird, like if it's something that we don't want to use. When inline size we are always referring to the total space that element has, right? We are not saying anything about content. If it seems a little weird to use height and width and blocks as an inline size to describe the sizing of the element's content area. So as I said, But when we do block size, there is nothing about content, right? We are saying about the total area or something. Why this? What is trying to say here? Yeah, yeah, he means that, right? So they are closely related to default and logical properties. Block size and inline size behavior, but if we then why should we do box sizing? Instead of block size. Why to use? Oh, so right now, so yeah, this is when CSS starts kicking in. So by block sizes, we are not controlling the total. We are not handling any padding or any other calculations. So box sizing makes it even more specific in terms of properties like padding and margin. Yes. Yeah. Remember when we meant block size? We should not. So if you go back over here, when we see how elements are. Remember block size just so this all are included in the block size. I mean what it's trying to say is when I say block size, this will all be included in one. For example, we don't have any much control. Like for example, padding, border, and this the control goes. If we say like we in previously we studied that we have different areas, right? The content area, then the padding, then the border, and then the margin. But then in block size, we use block size to do something. We cannot specifically change anything with padding or with borders. That flexibility is not there. That flexibility helps in using box sizing. So basically box sizing will have two properties. One is border box and then one is content box. So what is the difference between content box and There is something that we are missing here. Can we have can we change padding using box size? Now the box sizing and block size. So box sizing is more specific to layout, and we can have in the box using the box model we can control for padding and borders. But then block size, yeah, we don't have much control over padding and block size basically will tell us the logical size of an element in the block axis, like total space. But then we don't have much control over padding or borders. How big the element will be in that axis. That's what he's trying to say, that the yeah, bot sizing will allow you to be more specific and precise. But then border box blocks movement something like that. The layout properties are still not affected when we use it. Will say total. Can we use uh, block sizing and block size? So block size is something like giving the total size. Now in that 200 pixel, how to split? Okay, so mm, that is what he's trying to say. Yeah, so what he's saying is the block size will tell us the total size, whereas inherent properties like padding, margin, and other properties cannot be controlled. Those will be controlled using box sizing. Okay. Now block access property. Now the in total block access formatting is affected by 7 related properties. Margin block. Okay. Yeah, let's write down this. This and the other properties as well. Yeah, that's all for this lecture. We'll continue in the next one. Thanks. Bye. We'll continue with box sizing.